I just wanted to thank Alan and for the opportunity to talk about assistive technology. I'm going to talk fairly briefly and about the Wyoming Institute for Disabilities a little bit and one of our programs, which is Wyoming Assistive Technology Resources, and then have talk about assistive technology and then have our panelists do most of the talking. So again, my name is Sandy Root-Elledge. I am the Associate Director of the Wyoming Institute for Disabilities, soon to be interim director because we will not have an executive director as of Thursday, but we will be searching for one. Our panelists include Shelby Kappler. She is our first panelist. She will speak after I talk about assistive technology. She was born and raised in Vancouver, Washington, and she is about to be a sophomore at the University of Wyoming. She will be talking about her experiences with assistive technology. And then Sarah Chatfield, next to her, is a parent and educator. She graduated from Rice University and taught high school English before becoming a full-time stay-at-home mom. She is now pursuing her master's degree in special education with an emphasis on teacher for the visually impaired from Texas Tech University. Sarah will be talking about her experiences and visions related to her son, Jack. So I will talk again a little bit about the Wyoming Institute for Disabilities and assistive technology in general, and they really have the meat of the information because they're going to talk about their experiences. So WIND is what we are called, is a university center for excellence, as Alan said, in developmental disabilities, education, research, and service. We're called USEDS, the network. There are 67 USEDS, one in every state and territory, and some states have more than one. As Alan said, we're funded by the DD Assistance and Bill of Rights Act of 2000. WIND, we are celebrating our 20th anniversary. We were founded in 1994, although most USEDS, the majority of USEDS began in the 1960s. Wyoming didn't receive funding until that time, until the 90s. We are also an academic unit within the College of Health Sciences at the university. We have our Disability Studies program, and we offer a minor in Disability Studies. The core functions of USEDS are the building blocks of what we do. So to build capacity of communities to sustain all their citizens, we conduct activities of training and technical assistance, and that would include our pre-service training, which is training to educators and future educators and health providers at the university and others, and then training to professionals. So we conduct community education as well. Community services, we offer services, we develop programs, we often develop pilot programs that are then adopted for later growth and expansion. We conduct research and evaluation, and we disseminate information. And this is all based on the impact of people, for the impact of people with disabilities, especially developmental disabilities. Our activities are all rooted in either one or more of these, of advocacy, which is defined as the active support of policies and practices, capacity building, or systems change. This activity now we look upon as systems change. In our areas of emphasis, we're in the third year, we're just beginning the third year of our 5-year strategic plan. And our areas of emphasis that we're working on right now include health, education and early intervention, employment, cultural diversity, quality assurance, and assistive technology. Sorry about that. I just wanted to talk a little bit then about the legislation, the provision of assistive technology in legislation and in Wyoming Medicaid. So there is an Assistive Technology Act. It's the Act of 1998 as as amended in 2004. And the purpose of the Assistive Technology Act is to provide assistive technology to individuals with disabilities so they can more fully participate in education, employment, and daily activities, and then to level the playing field with other members of their communities. We often hear references to assistive technology as being a hand up, a handout, or cheating, or something like that. And that is not the case. This is to level the playing field so that all people have the same opportunities. And the AT Act defines assistive technology devices as an item, piece of equipment that can improve the functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. And this same definition is used in vocational rehabilitation and in IDEA as well. So it's a definition consistent across all three pieces of legislation. And the AT device categories, as defined and identified in the Act and in the field, include vision, hearing, speech communication, learning, cognition, and developmental, mobility, seating and positioning, and daily living, environmental adaptations, vehicle modification and transportation, computers and related, recreation, sports, and leisure. Assistive technology devices can be low-tech, medium, or high-tech. So an example of a low-tech device could be a pencil grip that can have be of infinite help to someone. Medium tech could be a recording pen that you've probably seen. That can be helpful to everyone, to most people, including individuals with disabilities. And then a high tech could be a sophisticated system in which maybe perhaps communication is integrated with computer access and other softwares. And then assistive technology services are defined by the Assistive Technology Act, and that's any service that, assists in someone being able to receive a device. So examples of services include evaluations, providing a device, selecting, customizing, or replacing a device, coordinating the use of therapies with the device. I mean, that's pretty key. If you're looking at someone who might need a communication device, they might also need occupational therapy to be able to access it, and speech communication therapy as well to support that device. And other services include training or technical assistance to individuals, families, and professionals, and then the expansion of access to AT through technology. As I mentioned, the same definition is used in IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education and Education Improvement Acts. And IDEA also mandates that students are provided assistive technology if they need it, and that each individualized education program team, so every IE team, needs to consider whether or not students need assistive technology. This is not merely a minute discussion and a checking of a box. There is an actual consideration process. There's a number of them. We actually have a recommended one on our website that a team from the state worked on. So that is a mandate within IDEA. And the way the law reads is that assistive technology should be made available to students if it's required as part of the child's special education, related services, or supplementary aids and services. And then on a case-by-case basis, teams can determine if a student needs to use the devices outside of the school in their home or other settings, especially if it's part of their free and appropriate education. And the team, as I said, needs to make a consideration determination during the IEP development. And there's 4 possible outcomes from that consideration. And that is either that assistive technology is not required, It is required, and the tools are known, so the team knows what tools will help the student. Assistive technology is required, but trials or some other method is needed to determine what the student should be using or should be provided to the student, or that in general more information is needed. So that's in the education realm. And then in vocational rehabilitation, and Jim, you can correct me if I don't have anything accurate here. The Rehab Act authorizes the use of assistive technology throughout the VR process, and again uses the same definition as the AT Act and IDEA. And the Rehab Act identifies the use of assistive technology to determine eligibility, to determine needs, and then to help meet employment goals. And AT for employment, as part of a VR plan, it needs to be for an employment goal, tied to a goal, consistent with the individual's abilities, and there could be an assessment needed to determine this, but also that the severity of the disability or the cost of the device cannot prohibit the provision of a device. And in Wyoming, VR may blend funding with the Department of Education or school districts, with a personal loan, and with Wyoming Medicaid. Part of a transition plan in Wyoming years ago, in fact, Wyoming was one of the initial states that did this. Workforce Services and Vocational Rehabilitation signed a memorandum of agreement with the Department of Education to purchase devices from school districts if they're going to be transitioned for the use for an employment goal. There is a limitation that anything over and above $10,000 would need the approval of the administrator for the employment plan. And Joe, I know you're out there, so if I get anything wrong here from Wyoming Medicaid and the waivers, please speak up. Basically, the waivers they use the term specialized equipment, and they identify that specialized equipment can be used for daily living, interactions with the environment, for life support or medical necessity, and to address the limitations of functionality. And a couple limitations in the scope here for the waivers. And I apologize, I'm reading from this. I finished this last night, and I don't have my notes up here, so I'll apologize now. A couple things that are limitations here are that the specialized equipment is limited to $2,000, and that technology devices are limited to one every 5 years, but yet you could file for an exception. So anything I've missed there, Jim or Joe? No. So in general, I mean, I think the key takeaway here is that there's provisions for assistive technology in all areas of the lifespan, and it's in education, it's in employment, and it's in community living. And then I just wanted to talk to you about our program. We are the State Assistive Technology Act program, and it's WATER, Wyoming Assistive Technology Resources. WATER was founded in 2004, so we're in our 10th year. And I will say to you that our speakers are going to address their use of assistive technology, and we're delighted because we know that there's not a substantial use of assistive technology in the state. Consistent actually with other states, some of our school districts, only 2% of students are using assistive technology. That can be seen in other states as well. But knowing the degree to which assistive technology can impact life or function or independence, I think that these stories will be of interest to you. So I will just talk to you a little bit about the program here. There's All programs have to address all state AT Act programs, so there is one in every state and territory. They have to address the entire state, all disabilities, and the lifespan of disability as well. We have specific domains, and those are education, employment, and community living. So we tend to work in there, but we're not prohibited, certainly, from working in others as well. And there's two goals in the AT Act, and one is the acquisition of devices. So we're trying to increase the acquisition of devices for individuals with disabilities, and we do that through two activities. We have a financial assistance program that provides low-interest loans, and that's called YTAP. Ken Hoff is here, and he administers that program, and at Wyoming Independent Living. And device reutilization. So we offer a website in which you can buy, sell, donate, or obtain a device, often at no or very low cost. And the second goal is to increase access to assistive technology information on devices and services. And we have really, as a group, identified we want to be sharing research-based or best practices information. So you can work through us. You're not expected to know the whole realm of assistive technology, but we are there to help you. I didn't introduce Barb Block. It just dawned on me. Sorry, Barb. Barb Block is our assistive technology professional, credentialed. She's a credentialed assistive technology professional on our staff, and she's out there as well as some others. So if you want to talk about assistive technology, they're showing devices. They'll talk to you, whatever you'd like, and they can follow up as well. So for access to AT information on devices and services, we offer device demonstrations so that, here they can demonstrate devices, but the faculty and staff spend a lot of time, most of the time, out in the state, at school districts, homes, wherever, demonstrating devices that might be appropriate for someone. And so from that information, they can make a decision. Device loans. We will loan devices for 6 weeks, thereby saving money when you want to purchase something. You've tried it, or you've tried it for someone, and you've made a decision. We provide information and assistance. If you call or contact us, we'll do the assistive technology research for you, and we conduct up to 2,000 of those every year. So it's a great resource. We're there to help you. And then in terms of state leadership activities, we do public awareness. That's more of what we're doing here today. Coordination and collaborations. That's with other agencies in the state and with other states. And then state changes in policies and procedures. AT Act programs usually work with legislators to try and make sure there's assistive technology legislation in every state. We have not done that yet, but our advisory council is ready to move forward whenever we can. We have a number of associated programs. I won't go through all of these, but Wyoming Agribility and ensuring that the employment on ranches and farms continue if there's a disability. Accessible instructional materials. We work with our College of Engineering both on a design program if you have a specific need that isn't on the market or that's very expensive. Our senior College of Engineering students will help design something. They also conduct switch workshops. Our Accessibility Center conducts assessments. We work with the Casper College Occupational Therapy Program so that those students learn about assistive technology, and then they conduct device demonstrations for us in Natrona County. The ICANN Connect program, which is the Wyoming Deaf Blind Equipment Distribution Center, we have given our money back to other states consistently because we are not identifying the people or they're not interested. This is to actually provide them with the devices. As an AT Act program, we cannot give out devices, but this program can for communication. And then we have a couple of other training programs. So now I just want to turn this over to our panelists, and we will begin with Shelby as soon as I can get the microphone to her.
Hi, I'm Shelby, and when I was 8 years old, so I was in the 3rd grade, I was diagnosed with a genetic eye disease called Stargardt's, which affects the rods and cones, the light and color receptors in my central vision. That leaves me with a blind spot in the central vision, so I have only peripheral vision. I have difficulty at night. I am sensitive to light, colorblind, and have problems with depth perception. When I was first diagnosed, my optometrist, once he figured out what the disease was and how it worked, told my parents that I was going blind and they needed to pull me out of public school, put me in the blind school, and that I wasn't going to be the same. So my parents obviously didn't listen to him. They sought out a second opinion, had much more testing done, and researched the disease to know kind of what was going to happen. So over a period of about 10 months, my vision deteriorated from 20/20 to about 2300 where it sits now. And it's not supposed to get any worse. I stayed in public school, and honestly that was probably the best thing that I could have done, because it integrated me into society just like any other kid. I was treated like all the other kids and held to the same expectations. I was put on a 504 rather than an IEP plan, which basically says that they have to accommodate me and allow me to use any sort of technology in class. I also received extra time for tests and assignments. Every year, my parents made a point to meet with teachers and principals and counselors before the beginning of the school year and let the teachers know what kind of assistance and help I would need throughout the year. And most of the time the teachers were very, very helpful. At that time, I also connected with my local state school for the blind, the Washington State School for the Blind, and I got a teacher of the visually impaired, a TVI, through there who was a major influence. She really introduced us to the kind of technology and assistance that was available. At that time, there wasn't a whole lot, at least that I knew of. I used a very low-tech dome magnifier through until my junior year of high school. In my junior year, I was introduced to a video magnifier. And at that point, I tried to change to an IEP because we heard that there was more funding, and I was looking for new and more advanced technology to help me through the rest of high school. However, I was tested, and they determined that I did not need special instruction, so I was denied the IEP and remained on the 504. So advocacy has been really important. My parents were definitely my biggest supporters. They made sure to find me everything that I needed. Like I said, we connected with the State School for the Blind, and they connected us with the Department of Services for the Blind when I came to college. So the Washington State Department of Services for the Blind provided me all of my technology and equipment to come here to college, as well as financial aid. They're actually paying my tuition and books, so that helps out immensely with my college and my schooling. When it comes to advocacy, it's definitely very important to connect with others and find out what's out there and available. I also found that the more people that know that I'm visually impaired and understand that, that leads to less ignorance and more understanding. I made sure to really be open about it throughout school. Anytime I was using a piece of equipment and some other student had a question, I told them exactly why I was using it. And I went through the same elementary, middle, and high school with the same kids, so I grew up with the same students, and they all pretty much understood my condition, and so I wasn't teased too much, which was pretty nice. Having said that, I don't really look blind, so I have had issues with some people just in society. I've gotten lots of questions like, have you forgotten your glasses, or what, are you blind? And I just look at them and say, well, that's a matter of fact. And they usually feel pretty bad after that, and I can guarantee that they probably won't ask that ever again. I said that the Department of Services for the Blind provides me with technology. So the kind of technology that I do use, I have a handheld video magnifier for reading print. I use screen magnification and screen readers on my laptop. I also have audiobooks for most of my textbooks and assigned readings. I have a CCTV with OCR capabilities, so that will take a picture of a document, scan it, and then read it out loud to me. For long distance and in-class use, I have what's called a MagnaLink, and there's several different versions of this sort of technology. But basically it's a camera which will hook up to my laptop, and so I can view the PowerPoints directly on my laptop and magnify them there as needed. As far as mobility and independent living goes, I use a lot of pretty low-tech devices, but they're helpful. I have a monocular, like a mini telescope for reading street crossings, and I use an identifier cane, which is a white cane, but it's smaller and lighter weight, so I can keep it in a purse or a backpack. That makes me visible to drivers who wouldn't normally tell that I had any sort of visual impairment. So I use the cane in places like airports to alert people that I would need help, and when crossing streets because I can't see drivers who might wave me across. Also, there's a couple things I just want to mention that you wouldn't normally think of when you think of someone who's visually impaired or blind. You do think of accommodations that they might need, but there are other certain things that no one thinks of. For example, walking into a grocery store to find a certain item. I can't just look up at the aisles and read where the item I'm looking for is going to be. I have to walk up and down each aisle. Also, restroom signs or different things like that. So those are interesting challenges, but I have kind of learned to adapt. So basically, in summary, it's really important to have advocates to know what you want, what you're looking for, and who to contact. So it's important to talk to a lot of different people and make yourself and your needs known, because the more people you have looking for a particular item or piece of technology or some other way to do something, you'll get suggestions. And then just basically be persistent and don't take no for an answer. Thank you.
My name is Sarah Chatfield, and I have a 4-year-old son who has a visual impairment. He has optic nerve hypoplasia. We call him low vision because he has so much functional vision, but he uses a cane and is in the process of learning Braille. And it's so nice to hear Shelby talk because the mountain that I have in front of me seems so like huge, and to see somebody on the other end is just such a relief. So I really love her story. So when it comes to assistive technology devices, Jack was diagnosed at 4 months old. We got a cane in his hands, I think at 18 months, and he got an iPad. We saw him with an iPad for the first time at about the same time. It was incredible. We usually, when my husband and I think of AT devices, it's funny to hear Sandy talk about low tech, because we have like 4 stools around our house at different places, like one in the kitchen, one in front of the TV, one in our bathroom / laundry room, because he really likes watching the time click down on our stackables on the dryer. He likes to watch the time click down on the timer. That's our low tech, and like with these 4 stools. And then we have some pretty high-tech devices. When my husband and I think about AT devices, we think about what's going to put Jack in the driver's seat. It's great to hear all these stories about people-centered, because when he first received that diagnosis, when we first heard the word blind, we talk about winning the lottery, we just didn't expect it. I thought I had done everything right. And with optic nerve hypoplasia, those of you who are familiar, you can do everything right, and it just still happens. So for the first year after his diagnosis, I had this terrible, horrible mentality that luckily my husband didn't have, but I would go around thinking, well, he can't do that. He's blind. Like, we can't go to the zoo. He's blind. Like, it's a terrible thing for me to admit. It's part of my grieving process, but I'm just going to put everything out there so you know where I'm coming from. But now Jack has a lot of personality, so this makes it really easy, but it's what Jack wants, likes or dislikes, and what can assistive technology do to put him in that driver's seat. So whether or not he's blind does not factor into it. It's whether or not he enjoys doing something. And so how does assistive technology get us there? So I was just going to talk briefly about the things we look for in AT devices, and then how that meets his educational and even affective needs in school. So a few things that we look for. I'm sure for those of you who work in visual impairment, you know how costly it is to be blind. So we try to be good stewards for our funds, even if it's somebody else buying the equipment. So we ask, is Jack going to be able, is this something that we're just going to put $2,000 or $3,000 of somebody else's money towards, and he's only going to use it once? Which is why water is so great, because you can go and rent out the equipment or have somebody come in and train everybody, because I mean, that's a lot of time and investment, and so water's been really great. In fact, Wendy Alameda, who's not here tonight, has been really instrumental in that. And we're talking about a 4-year-old, so is it durable? Like, I don't want breakable stuff around my son, because he'll just break it, and he throws. We've been through a few canes already. We've been through a few like breakable objects in our house already, because that cane just doesn't want to stick on the floor, so it has to be durable. The big one is, and why we use the iPad and the iPhone so much, is how intuitive is it, not just for a 4-year-old, but for the people who are working with our 4-year-old. If you can hand it to the teachers and they know immediately within like a couple of steps, how is this going to help Jack immediately in my classroom, that makes a huge difference. My 18-month-old Jack could run that iPad, and he has to be like literally 5 centimeters away from it to really operate it. If it's that intuitive, and that's why I know I promised Sandy I wouldn't like plug the iPad / iPhone / Apple TV / Mac too much, but the Apple products have really become the litmus test. I know we go to these conferences on visual impairment, and they are promoting these $2,000 pieces of equipment, and if I can do it with a $1 app or even a free app, or if Siri can do it already, we have to be good stewards for these. As a parent, I feel like if I go into a district and I'm like, I want to be a good stewardship of this, then I think I get a little bit more respect. And then when I really find something that's going to cost maybe a little bit of money, then we have a better relationship. Jack has not only is he going to have to learn how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and do his own laundry and be great at geometry and all these things that really, in the grand scheme of things, geometry is not that big of a deal. But English is, because I'm an English, or was an English teacher, English is big. But he's going to have to know how to budget, because stuff that, you and I just think about as normal costs are going to be more for him either in actual money or in time. He's going to have a lot of additional costs, and so we have to try and model that for him. So I just want to talk a little bit about how AT has met his educational needs, and then more importantly, his affective needs. He will be a Braille reader. He will be the only Braille reader in Carbon County 2 right now. So unless we have another TVI move to our district, and like Sandy mentioned, I'm getting my TVI, it'll be Jack and I will be the two people who read Braille. And to expect to go into a kindergarten classroom and expect that kindergarten teacher or even the special ed person, and I don't want to ruffle any feathers there, but I have expectations of what we can do to help these teachers be successful with Jack, and then also for Jack to be successful in the classroom. So there's technology out there to add Braille seamlessly into that kindergarten classroom. In our kindergarten, all the kids get issued iPads. And there's these little sort of things that connect to the iPads that are refreshable Braille strips. This is a game changer for Jack. It also, assistive technology also gives him multiple access points to the literature or the math. And not to get too technical or anything, but when you and I look around the room, we see all this print, and it reinforces our print learning. Jack doesn't have any of that, so to give him all these AT devices, like we have a CCTV, which we got on grant. That was not money that we spent out of our own. That would have been 4 car payments, I don't know. The iPad, the iPhone, we have all these tools that give him multiple access points to the same things that your other kids are getting visually, which is super important. As far as affective needs go, I really like, because he's 4, I think I mentioned that 5 times already, but he's 4, and for the first time last week, he said, "Mom, is there anybody else like me?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Is there anybody else who has to look really close at something like the TV? Anybody else has to look really close to see it?" He's 4, and he's realizing that he's different, that he has this part of him that's, other. What I like about AT is, especially, again, not to push it with the iPad, he will look just like every other kid in his classroom. That's a big deal for him and for his peers. And not that it should be, but it still is. Another thing that it does is he knows this iPad so well that the other kids go to him to figure out how to do iPad stuff, which makes him kind of a leader, which is really great, because the one thing I'm super scared about is to see him passively going through his educational career, waiting for stuff to land in front of him or be brailled for him or be accommodated for him. I want him to do, what Shelby was saying, is be an advocate for himself. And if you're a leader, if you're able to teach the other kids in your classroom how to use the iPad in a new way, that gives you a kind of self-esteem boost that I think is going to be really critical for him, and he can do that already, which is super exciting to see. And finally, he is learning how to problem solve using AT devices. So if he knows his 2-year-old brother can go out and see that there's a horse in our backyard, and he knows he can't see that, he uses his iPhone, takes a picture in the general direction, and then can zoom in on the iPhone or drop it to our Apple TV and look at it, our big screen TV. And I know it seems like a lot for a 4-year-old to do, but if he's motivated to do it, that's learning that you can take advantage of, because he's, motivated. So you can just kind of point him in the right direction. Took my husband maybe 2 hours to learn the Apple TV remote. Jack was highly motivated and had it done in 10 minutes. He can get to Curious George in 10 minutes using his Apple TV remote. So In short, he's 4 years old, and we've been with AT devices now for 18 months, like 2.5 years. It has made a huge difference. When he goes into kindergarten, there won't be additional learning curves, like with the classroom and the new layout and eating. Gosh, it makes me shiver just to think about him in the cafeteria. Like, that's not one of these learning curves we've already been through in a low-stakes environment. And now, so when he goes to kindergarten, these are all these sort of really rough roads that I've been worried about for a long time that'll be smoothed for him. And this is what AT devices can do for you. Okay, thanks so much.
And to wrap up, I'm Barbara Locke, and I'll try to make my part short so you're on schedule. But I am an assistive technology professional and a special ed teacher. And I have to say that the position that I have now with water is the best job that I've ever had in my life because of my ability to work daily with assistive technology and frequently try to figure out the puzzle of applications of assistive technology with human beings. There's a quote that says, "Technology for people without disabilities makes things easier. For people with disabilities, it makes things possible." And that's the greatest thing about assistive technology, is that as a professional and as a member of the assistive technology team, we're looking at a person's, the abilities that the student or the individual brings to either the educational or life area or work area, and try to figure out what features of devices, well, just what features that a person needs. And then it's our job, not just mine as an ATP, but the team, to take a really rounded look at an individual and try to list, and I do mean physically list features that the person needs, so that the experiences that you've heard these two ladies describe doesn't take a lifetime. Like you hear about AT trials. Well, that's what it is. It's a trial. And the assistive technology process really is geared towards shortening the trials so that you don't, but if you started 18 months, by the time you're 21, you still haven't arrived at a device to purchase, that you've trialed devices for all this time. In Wyoming, we're fortunate to have several resources where any citizen in Wyoming can obtain devices to trial or use while their personal device is being repaired, or as you're moving on to a newer device to see what new features are available. We have a loan library, and we have several devices, examples out on the table as you walk in the double doors. That's just a really teeny bit of what we have in our loan library. Anything is available for a 6-week free trial. We'll mail it to you. We'll answer questions. We'll even link with Skype or Link for video conferencing to help you work through problems. Then at the end of your loan period, you can insure and ship it back. Another resource is Wyoming Independent Living. They have devices, lots of times devices that we don't have in our loan library. Another resource is the Life Resource Center, the Weston Center. And their equipment is either medical, or like mobility and positioning, things that we don't have in our loan library because they're so personalized to an individual's body structure. But again, some of those pieces of equipment are literally thousands and thousands of dollars, and in the case of the Weston Center, those are long-term loans. So if you find something on the AT for All website that looks like it might work, and you take it out for the individual, you can have it for as long as it's needed. Success stories. Well, I think if we've done our job on the front end of doing an assessment, an effective assessment with the student, it lessens the trial and error period. And a lot of the things that jump to my mind in terms of success, of course, would be augmentative communication. One of the most important skills that anybody can have, but you've heard the other speakers talk in length about that. But definitely, you'll see multi-thousand-dollar devices out on our table, but the realm of every piece of an assistive technology area runs through a continuum from low-end devices to very expensive devices. Sometimes through the assessment you figure out, the kid is 10 years old, they're talking in 1- and 2-word utterances, and typical 10-year-olds are a little bit more expressive than that. So you need to jump to a higher end device just because you don't have the rest of their lifetime to build, multi-paragraph utterances. But we run the gamut of low end to high end and would be willing to converse with anybody over the phone or video conferencing to help your teams figure out the features of devices that you could choose and link you up either with those things in our loan library or things that Ken has or the Weston Center has, and help you figure out how to put those into use. And if you have difficulties, troubleshoot with you so that it is a successful part of a person's life that moves them in leaps and bounds forwards, not just steps. Thanks.
I think we're probably out of time, right, Alan? Okay. Thank you. No, thank you very much. And if we can help you at all, just contact us. Thanks.